This is the Mighty Manfred, and it's time to start your coolest conversation. And today, I am talking with Steve Conte. How you doing, Steve?
Hey, Manfred, how are you?
And I'm doing all right. Much better to be chatting with you right now. Man, you got quite the musical resume. Over the years, you've worked with the likes of, let's see, just to name a few, Chuck Berry, Paul Simon, Peter Wolf, Michael Monroe, Susie Quatro, Maceo Parker, Willie Nile, Willie DeVille. What got you into that circuit of working as a sideman?
Well, when I first moved to New York, I was, trying to get a record deal for my band and everything. And in the meantime, I had to pay the rent, and I don't work, I don't do too well with bosses and regular jobs. So, I figured I needed to play my guitar with people. So, Billy Squire called. I went and did a tour with him. And people just started passing my name around. And actually, it all started really happening in sort of a bigger scale way after my band Company of Wolves in 1990. After that record came out on Mercury, and then people started hearing me and finding out how to get in touch with me and like that. Some of those people you mentioned, I hadn't really met and played with and hung out with. I just played on a record. Yeah. But I did session work. I did some tours. It's all.
Well, more recently, you wound up landing that New York Dolls gig, and with that, I mean, not only did you play on the record, you co-wrote some songs. You were doing the tours. How did you wind up being part of the Reformed Dolls?
Again, it's like hanging around New York long enough. If you're, worth anything, people pass your name around and people know about you. And I guess I had a pretty good reputation. Apparently, David Joe was asking around a lot of guitar players that he knew and that he worked with and respected, who should I call for the Dolls? And 3 or 4 different guys said, just call Conte, don't call anybody else. So he ended up calling me, and we met for lunch. And by the end of lunch, he handed me a package of lyrics and CDs and said, so what do you think? You want to do this? And that was it.
Well, now you've hooked up with Michael Monroe, right? Michael Monroe Band.
Yeah, Michael from Hanoi Rocks and from Demolition 23, who Steven produced, and solo career. And we've done 3 albums so far. One of a live album of sort of his greatest hits, and then 2 brand new material albums. The latest one, Horns and Halos, which I wrote most of the songs for, one of which was the coolest song in the world a few months back, Ballad of the Lower East Side.
So you've had this sort of sideman thing going on to help pay the bills, but you've also had your own stuff always always concurrently going on. You mentioned Company of Wolves. Was that your first band?
Well, it wasn't my first band in life, but it was the first band that I, got signed to a record contract with, and, Mercury Records, 1990. We actually the same album, the same label as the Dolls and Michael Monroe, oddly enough.
It's fate bringing it all together.
Yeah, it certainly was fate. But as Graham Parker put it, mercury poisoning. But who
That's
you
right.
play a lot of, thank you.
So you could cover mercury poisoning.
Yes, I think we all could. All 3 bands.
Hey, one more question about Company of Wolves. I know that as a title from a 1980s movie, a werewolf movie. You familiar with that movie?
I've never seen it, but our singer Keith Brewer was a fan of the movie, and he actually had a song titled that. And when we were looking for a name for the band, we were looking down the our set list, and we said, "Hey, that looks like a good name for the band, maybe."
Well, I got to stick
it just kind of stuck.
The movie's pretty great too. I don't know if it ever made it to DVD or anything. Now, a lot of these projects that you had, Company of Wolves and Crown Jewels, they also involved your brother John, right?
Yeah, killer bass player.
And now he's also part of your latest project, Steve Conte NYC. Tell me about that.
Thank you. Yeah. The album had a number of different bass players on it, and other guest artists. John plays the bulk of the songs. I think 5 out of the 10. He's on bass, and I also had some other players, which I'll tell you about in a minute. But yeah, it was the core. The core band really was myself, Rich Pagano on drums, and Brother John on bass. And he's actually part of Southside Johnny and the Asbury Jukes, as you probably know, who you guys play a lot of. So he did the basic tracks with me, and then I had some other bass players come in and a guest as well as other guitar players and keyboard players and singers and stuff too. So, but yeah, John and I have been playing together since we were 9 and 10 years old. And we had our first band that we recorded in the family living room, all original material, you know, before our voices changed. We were singing way up high like this. And very Beatles-ish.
Who are some of the other folks that are on the new album, part of the new project?
Well, let's see. Steve Conte, NYC album has John Conte on bass, Rich Pagano on drums, myself on most string instruments and lead vocals. I have Sammy Yaffa also on bass, Keith Christopher from the Georgia Satellites, and Dan Baird on bass, and Dennis Dunaway, the original Alice Cooper bass player. I have Ginger Wildheart from the Wild Hearts on guitar, Dragan from the Backyard Babies Helicopters on guitar as well, Michael Monroe on saxophone, Sylvain from the Dolls on guitar and vocals, Crystal Talafaro on background vocals, Rami Jaffe from the Wallflowers and the Foo Fighters on B3, Keith Brewer from Company of Wolves also on piano, Paul Ronnie Angel from the Urban Voodoo Machine on harmonica, banjo, vocals. So,
man, you got the Soldiers of Rock lined up for that one, don't you?
Yeah, it came out great. You know, I made this record. I was spending most of my time in Europe over the past couple of years because of working with Michael Monroe. And I was going to be home for one weekend. And I thought, I got to record an album and do it in a weekend. And I just found who was around, you know, and I picked the songs that I knew that these guys could just do without any rehearsal. We didn't have any rehearsals. We just went in. I said, here's how the song goes. We hit record, ran it down 2 or 3 times, and that was the record.
Oh,
and, you know, I mean, then it kept it fresh instead of, you know, sounding labored over, because you can do that with digital recording these days. You can make it way too perfect, and then it's all the soul is squeezed out of it, you know?
Oh, I know that exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the criteria. It was like, you know, finding the right players who could play the really simple songs. And then I had some friends of mine just send me tracks. You know, Ginger sent me a track from England. Crystal sent me a track from Nashville. You know, Rami sent me tracks from California. And it worked like that.
When you mentioned spending a lot of time overseas in Europe, in fact, I'm speaking to you today from Holland, and you were just recently in Finland. And let's see, Michael Monroe and Sammy Yaffa joined you on stage. You were playing in Finland. Was that a tour of Finland you were doing? What's been going on overseas with you?
I'm over here now to do some summer festivals with Monroe, and because he is Finnish, and there's all these festivals in Finland, and he's big on television over there. He's on like the Finnish Idol sort of show, or the Voice of Finland. So we get all these Finnish festivals that we play, and my wife is Dutch, so I'm staying in Holland with my family. And, you know, I just jet over to Finland or Sweden on the weekends and play these festivals, and then come back and hang out with the fam.
What is it with this Scandinavian thing? We got little Steven hanging out all the time in Norway. You're over there rocking with the Finns.
Yeah, you know, I mean, they just love rock and roll. It's almost like it's 1987 all over again. I mean, they look like they could be on stage with the band, some of these kids. You know, they line up right at the front of the stage, you know, pink hair, purple hair, studs, you know, leather jackets, and, you know, they're just like cool kids. Like, they don't know that it's uncool in America to like rock and roll. You're supposed to like hip hop and wear baggy pants, you know?
That's it. Oh,
you know, thank God for them, because, you know, I mean, well, let's face it, you guys know because of your station where it's at. And, you know, I think America's a little you know, they lost it somewhere along the line. You know, as far as the music industry goes, you know, what's being put out there. I mean, you know, I hear everything on Underground Garage.
I tell you what, Steve, you keep carrying the torch and we'll keep fanning the flames. How about that?
Yeah, because, you know, you guys play everything from, you know, Otis Redding to, you know, the Beatles to, you know, Dave Clark 5, whatever. I mean, I hear the whole lineage of rock and roll on Underground Garage, and it's awesome.
Oh, man, so, Steve, thanks so much. Thanks so much for speaking with me. And we're going to go out with another tune off the new album. This is Dark in the Spotlight.
Thank you.